Hey everybody, it's Eric from epautos.com, your libertarian car guy, and I'm doing a quick walk around here of the 2019 Kia Sorento, which is a mid-sized crossover SUV that comes standard with a third row seat, which is something that's fairly uncommon in crossovers of this size. Most of them, like the Ford Edge for example, and the Chevy Equinox and the Mazda CX-5, are two-row only deals, so you kind of get force upsold into something that's a real gigantosaurus in order to get the third row seat. Now that brings me to my next interesting point about this Kia. It turns out that its footprint is actually less than that of a current mid-sized car. I checked the length of the thing, and it's just under 190 inches long, and a current Toyota Camry is actually about 3 inches longer overall than this crossover SUV, and that's really appealing if you're somebody who needs a family-sized vehicle but really doesn't want a gigantosaurus that's difficult to maneuver, that is hard to park, and that eats up all the space in your garage. Now, of course, the third row in this thing is smaller than the third row that you would find in a full-size crossover. That's to be expected. See if I can get this down for you to show it to you. So there you go. It's definitely a tighter spot, and of course it's harder to get to because, again, you've only got so much room for the second row to slide forward in order to access the third row. But this is essentially for kids. You have young kids, you've got teenagers, they'll have no problems clambering in the back and getting to it. And bottom line, in a two-row only SUV, you can only carry 5 people no matter what, whereas this you can carry 7 people, so that's pretty cool, and it's standard. Some of the other vehicles that are roughly similar to this that do offer a third row charge you extra for it. This is standard, so that's pretty cool. So what's the catch? Well, the catch is, in addition to the third row being tight, you also do lose some cargo capacity behind the last row when the row is up. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of space here. When the third row is up, it's just under 12 cubic feet. But if you drop the seats, the third row, you end up with actually the same total cargo capacity as class leaders like the Ford Edge. It's about 73 cubic feet. So, and that's actually more total capacity than in slightly smaller two-row crossovers like the Chevy Equinox and the Mazda CX-5. So it gives you some versatility. If you don't constantly have to carry people in the third row, you can drop the third row and have the cargo capacity, but when you do need to carry kids, you can put those third row seats back up, and voila, you can carry kids. While I'm at it, while I'm back here, let me show you something else too that is a problem with this vehicle, but not just this vehicle. It's a problem with almost all vehicles, and it's not a problem that you should complain about to Kia or any other car manufacturer, but rather to the government. And that problem is how much visibility is eaten up by the headrests. A lot of people don't know that there is a federal anti-whiplash standard that the car companies have to comply with, and that's why all these cars have these ultra-high headrests. So the regulation is supposed to protect the passengers who sit back there from whiplash, and that's fine and dandy, but the problem is when these seats are up, you can see how that pretty much eats up, I'd say, 40% of the total potential view to the rear. I'm going to put the glass down so that you can see, and it really limits and impairs the rearward visibility of the vehicle. The good news is you can, of course, drop those seats, and in some cases you can just pull off the headrest as well. So it's not a fatal flaw. Now, something else that I wanted to mention about this before I conclude this little rant is that reportedly, not officially, not yet, but reportedly, Kia is going to offer a diesel engine option in this vehicle, as well as its sister vehicle, the Hyundai Santa Fe. We're right now in late summer 2018. It's not currently available. They're talking about sometime in model year 2019 or calendar year 2019. So it'll be spring or summer next year, assuming they can get it past the government. The Chevy Equinox, one of the nominal competitors of this vehicle, already does offer a diesel, and in the Equinox it's capable of about 40 miles per gallon on the highway, and I would anticipate something comparable from the diesel in this vehicle. And that would be absolutely fantastic. To get a nice big family vehicle that can carry 7 people, that's capable of about 40 miles per gallon on the highway. That would be really cool. Oh, and speaking of cool things, I'll end with one other cool thing. And that is that the Sorento, unlike a lot of vehicles, both of its engines are not turbocharged. They still rely on fairly large engines relative to some of the engines in rival vehicles to produce power without a turbo. So, for example, the standard engine in this thing is a 2.4 liter 4. In the Equinox, it's a 1.5 liter turbo 4. So, why is that bad or why is that good? Well, I personally think the turbo stuff is a little bit on the bad side, chiefly because you got a small engine that has to be on boost all the time pretty much to make up for the fact that it's a small engine. So that little engine is working really hard, and I think that probably we're going to find out 5-10 years from now, when a lot of these vehicles have been on the road for a while, that they're going to tend to have more repair and maintenance issues than vehicles without the turbo. Now, if the mileage difference were spectacularly better, then I would say maybe it's worth it. And by spectacularly better, I mean at least minimum a 5 mile per gallon difference on average. But actually, it's around 2 to 3 miles per gallon if you dig into the stats. It's not that huge a difference, and that's on paper. And I will tell you, as somebody who test drives these cars every week, that in real-world driving, these turbo engines are not what they're cracked up to be, again, because of the fact that in order to get the mileage that they advertise, you have to really keep your foot off the throttle. If you get on the throttle, you'll be on boost, and the engine will use as much or even more gas than an otherwise comparable engine that does not have a turbo. Finally, the other thing is that you can still get a V6 in this. Without a turbo, by the way, and a lot of vehicles in this class no longer offer the option of a 6-cylinder engine. Their optional engine will typically be a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. The Ford Edge still offers a twin-turbo V6. That's one of the few that does. But by and large, the majority of vehicles in this class are becoming 4-cylinder only, and even some of the bigger vehicles, like the Subaru Ascent that I test drove recently, and also the Mazda CX-9 are getting to the point of no longer offering anything bigger than a Turbo 4. So I thought I'd mention that, and there will be more up on epautos.com shortly. And thanks for viewing, and we'll catch up with you again soon.